All right, everybody. We were talking about Moloch and Moses. Um, and But here's the question, right? So when discussing all this stuff, the question is what is Moses' view of sacrifice, right? I mean, he's against the Molochian total sacrifice. He's against it. He's totally against Molochian sacrifice. And again, that is very clear to me in his teachings and the other Torah teachings on holiness, on living a more balanced life, I think. Again, that's why the Book of Enoch actually deserves to be in the canon, but I don't think Enoch would actually want to be in the canon, to be honest. I think he likes being the infamous one. Anyways, so what would be Moses' view of sacrifice, though? Because Moses is not going to be like against sacrifice. He's just against this total sacrifice of the Molochian way, the Phoenician and the Canaanite way. So what would be his view of sacrifice? And, I think if we look at the Torah as a whole, if we examine the Torah as a whole, then what do we see? I think that we see families fighting each other. Like, that's what we see in all of these stories. The stories that Moses wrote, the stories that other Torah writers wrote. This is families fighting each other. So what do we see? We see a story that is more like a soap opera, right? This is a hidden soap opera. But I think one of the clear messages of Moses is that you have to purify your household, right? You have to purify your home. And only when you purify your home is your sacrifice acceptable to the Lord. Hey Lot, you go over that way and we'll go over this way. You have to purify your home. And Lot was not purifying his home. He should have fired some of his shepherds and kicked them out. Or controlled them in some way. But that's the thing that I'm starting to see in this Torah, right? Because when you look at the story of the Jew father who had two Jew sons, and the oldest Jew son was he was a hunter, right? And the other Jew son was I guess what we would call more of a nerd, right? And this father, he praised his eldest son, right? And but like when I started reading these Sumerian stories, because that's where Abraham comes from. Abraham comes from Sumeria. He comes from Ur, and Moses likes the Sumerian wisdom. Moses is a big fan of the wisdom of Ea. And he clearly condemns the wisdom of Babylon, where Marduk confronts Tiamat in the street and says, hey, you're a cunt. stop being a cunt. And everybody cheers, and they're like, yay, Tiamat's a cunt. Finally, someone stood up to her. And he condemns that way because that's what he did when he was young and unwise and living in Egypt. He confronted these two Jews in the purity of his heart because he was a fighter Jew. He was obviously a fucking fighter Jew. And he wanted his tribe to be glorious and awesome. And so he confronts this Jew. He's like, hey, why are you treating this other Jew like this? That's not right. Right? Because Moses is pure-hearted. He's for justice. That's not right. He's confronting Tiamat in the square. And what happens? He gets his ass handed to him. That's the Babylonian way. The way of the virtuous man. Because again, I see the Torah as a ninja scroll. And Moses is saying, hey, you need, like if there's a toxic person out there, you need to mark them on their foreheads. But not in how you treat them. How do you treat them? You praise them. And that's what this Jew father did to his eldest son, who was the hunter. Right? This eldest son was an idiot child who, oh, I'm going to hunt. Yeah, I hunted, Daddy. Whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, who your family is, you can't choose. Who your DNA is. And some of your DNA is going to have a malicious heart. But this eldest son, I don't think he had a malicious heart. Some people are just stupid. And what do the Sumerians say? The Sumerians say, hey, Ninurta, it is good to praise you. And that's what this father did with his eldest son. He praised him. And what did he get in return? Ninurta, it is good to praise you. Ninurta, it is good to praise you. Why is it good to praise Ninurta? Because if you praise Ninurta, you're going to be eating some really good meat. Right? You're going to be like, fucking A. Not only are you going to be eating meat, you're going to be controlling a son who could be controlled by a wicked man and used to hurt other people. So instead of allowing this child to go out into the world and be used by another man who has a malicious heart, he, as a father, shepherds his son. But he has no connection with his son. The face that he's putting onto his son is not the real face. He wishes his eldest child was more wise than he was, but he's not. And so what I'm trying to say here is that home is where the heart is. Family is a spiritual word. And it is not a word of blood and DNA. And this is the sacrifice of Abraham. If we go into Samuel, which I need to get into Samuel, and I don't want to jump the gun because that's definitely something I'm gonna study and get out to you guys, because I love Samuel. Oh my God, Samuel, he's so much different than Moses. Moses was a fighter. Fucking A, he just loved to fucking fight and kick ass. And if he were here today, he'd be in the fucking UFC, or he'd be, in Thailand kicking a tree right now. But Samuel, on the other hand, was a gentleman. Right? He was a gentleman. And Samuel starts out his book with a criticism of the former high priest that was before him, because Samuel's the new high priest. He's in charge, not David or Saul. Samuel is in charge. And his criticism of the former high priest, what is it? You have this father who has these two sons who are murderers, they are thieves, and they are liars. And what is the criticism there of Samuel? The criticism is obviously that this father should have taken out his sons. That is the sacrifice of Abraham. If your child is a murderer, then you are a murderer if you call them a child. You are guilty. If your child is a murderer and you do nothing about it, you are guilty. I mean, these are the laws of the universe. That's right. But not only of the universe, these are the laws of the early Republic of Rome. The same laws of the early Republic of Rome before they were corrupted by the cynical, evil ways of the Athenians. It's like, no, if your child's a murderer, then you better do something about that before he hurts somebody. Your love should be for God first, not your DNA or your blood, because you are a pisser against the wall if you do not act against evil and injustice. And so for Moses, I think your sacrifice will only be acceptable to God if you have a pure home. And a pure home is not a physical home, as we see in this story of the Jew and his two sons. The home is of the heart. The law is of the heart. And this father had heart for his youngest son, but his youngest son had to live his own life and prove it. Prove that his heart was what he hoped what the father hoped it would be. But the son's heart is only what it would be is if he lives his own story. Therefore, you have to sacrifice your children to God and let them be. And stop trying to control them. That is what an evil father would do, not a good father. They would let their children be them and not try to plan out their life for them like the modern Asian parents do, to the unhappiness of these children. No, we need to respect people according to the respect that we should give them. And this idea that we should praise the ancestors, you shamans should be ashamed of yourself. You shamans should be ashamed of yourself for praising the ancestors. Because some of your ancestors were toxic douchebags. Smelly, toxic douchebags. And they shouldn't be praised. Only the ancestors who had love within their hearts should be praised. And that distinction should be made, or you are a genocidal maniac.